we are.
Are we
We're
live?
live. That's what it says. It says we're live, but I don't really believe it until George Bonnie.
We already got one person in there with 0 thumbs up.
How is it? How we have one person and no thumbs ups? We need those thumbs ups for analytics.
Exactly, for the YouTube
and our
machine.
egos.
Yeah,
our egos. You know what I mean? We need to have. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you, whoever, Mr. Oh, 2 thumbs up. Thank you.
And one person in there.
Oh, there he is. Dankin. George Bonnie. What did I say? We're not alive until George Bonnie's in, but Dankin beat him.
Here he is.
So, Luis Lopez, what's happening? Mike Smith, Fubar the Axe, always ready. James Elliott, Abel D, Jeremy R, Numbnuts, Rocky Myers, Mike. We got a little mid-made muscle. Mark Neese, Space Cat 72. The Kickendell. The Kickendell is here. You can relax now.
I'm totally relaxed now.
You were all stressed out. Is the Kickendell going to show up? But there he is.
They're here. Yeah. And now I'm relaxed.
Thank God. All right.
George Bonnie, that's right. Hit them thumbs up.
16 thumbs up. It's climbing. It's climbing. The thumbs up are good for us because it helps the YouTube algorithm. Why is the mic so front? Did you actually put it there to feature the mic?
I was trying to get it out of the camera view.
Instead, you put it right in the camera.
Right in the middle.
Here, you know what you do? Let's just put this right. Let's just put this right here.
I should put it directly on my face like this.
that's the gayest thing I've ever done. I want to wash my hands. Oh my God. Oh, look, it's Mac with that. It was Matt Canick.
Uncle Squirrel's in
here from New York.
Blaming squirrels again.
Harley Hawk. Danny, when you missed the best 75 seconds of YouTube in YouTube history, why did you put it close to me? Why is it now it's all close to me?
Well, I think it just gravitates towards you.
Yeah, no, it kind of likes me. Put it over
here. Let's get it out of the way and then
okay, that's all right.
Is that good?
I like it better if I feel more comfortable. All right. Is this the home cooking channel? Yes, we're going to make beef stroganoff later on. Dallas is actually hand making the noodles.
We saw it at the beginning of the show where we were just getting things ready with the blue microphone to make some beef stroganoff.
Let's see. Dankin says, thanks for the Buick tips. I've been doing burnouts my special for 2 days straight. Nice. Your tire shop loves you, man.
And you know what? It's hard as hell to get tires now. What is? It's getting worse, people.
You know, it's weird. I used to do, when I was a kid, I was a burnout fanatic. I just had to do burnouts on every freaking thing. You know what I mean? All the time. I'm always melting tires. You know what I mean? Then I got motorcycles. I got into motorcycles, and I was a wheelie freak. I had to wheelie everything all the time.
I'm surprised you didn't do burnouts on the bikes because they're good for.
I did burnouts on bikes, but I just stopped. Like I lost the desire to do burnouts and or wheelies. I think it's an age thing, man.
It might be. You might have grown up. Believe it or not, you may have grown up.
Is Tony raising the cow? Yeah. Actually, I bred the cow. We artificially.
Oh, for our beef stroganoff.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually grew this cow in a petri dish. It really wasn't a petri dish. It was a holly float bowl.
Lecherous Rex says it's an age thing. Yeah, probably. Jules in. Where is Paige? She's hanging out with your mom, I heard. Let's see. Burnouts always make me giddy and giggle. I know, me too. But I don't know. I just stopped doing them. I don't know why. Matt S. The Junkyard Jet Crew is doing good, coming along with it. Still a little ways to go. Still a long ways to go.
Fun with Cars is asking if the NHRA is the Not Happy Racers Association. What is the AHRA?
All happy. Right.
All hot rods allowed.
Yeah, and All Happy Racing Association. Everybody's happy. It's crazy.
That thing looks like it came from the Adam and Eve catalog.
Let's see.
You don't hear smoky burnouts as often as you used to. I think that's because they make more power now and they don't smoke, they don't squeal that much.
Oh, you know what it is too? Like in the old days, like the burnout was just, okay, so on the burnouts, you do burnout on the street, you do them just for shits and giggles, right? But the tires today, the tire compounds, like drag radials, they tell you don't do a burnout. Just clean the tire. You know what I mean? And my first experience with drag radials, that's what I did. And you could not get it to stick any better than it does, you know, without a burnout. So,
Mr. Will says we're the Colt Seavers and Howie Munson of YouTube.
I don't know who those people are.
Fall Guy. That's the Fall Guy.
I've never seen the Fall Guy.
You've never seen the Fall Guy?
I've never. No.
Huh.
It's John Wilburn. John Wilburn has popped in.
MWDDR.
MWDDR, what's that?
I don't know. He says hello, MWDDR.
I don't see that. Max.
Huh.
Oh, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly.
Oh, yeah, that's him probably.
And Fubar is already dropping a link to our merch, our shirts, which Uncle Crystal makes with her own hands. Right here, like 15 feet away from where we're sitting right now.
Literally, as soon as we started, Fubar put the AHRA merch stuff. And what's funny is today I dropped a whole bunch of new merch on there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we finally got it in like last week, and then we took it to an event this past weekend, and I just haven't had time to put it up.
You get ready for Halloween.
Well, and then, yeah.
The AHRA Halloween.
I thought about dressing up as a racer, you know, as like somebody with a helmet on.
Like, oh, you got my breather mask.
Wear that around?
Yeah.
Cool.
When the whole mask thing got started, I didn't do it, but I was like, "You're gonna make me wear a freaking mask? Yeah, I'll wear this one." But I never did. I just never wore a mask. But if I had to wear a mask, if I was forced to wear a mask, that's the one I would be wearing.
Abel D is asking Uncle Tony in Dallas, "What's your favorite tire brand for burnouts?" What's yours?
I don't really have one.
Mine is like used.
Used. Yep. Somebody else's. My favorite brand to do burnouts with is somebody else's tire. Yeah, you put me in somebody else's car, and I'm a burnout fiend.
Whoa, my Suburban? Did you burn them out?
I didn't, but I could. I should have. Peter DeSantos says, "Keep up the great work. He always looks forward to the show." We look forward to the show too.
Tom Muse says, "I already have part of my costume sitting in front of me. I'm assuming this microphone. I'm going as a Navy man. If I was going as a Navy man, the microphone would not be in view."
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why I've lost my desire to do burnouts.
What's that?
Because it's become a thing. Okay? Like, in other words, like in the old days, you know what I mean? You do a burnout just for shits and giggles, right?
Right.
You burn the tires and it's like, like I made smoke, right? Okay, fine. But now it's become a thing. Like the Australians started it, and it's just like this burnout, crazy freaking burnout, right? And then like it's just become a thing. Now people build cars just to do burnouts. And it's
I think a lot of that came along when, you know, the Australians have always been big into burnouts. And if you haven't noticed, they got like all their heavy hitter stuff is like blower cars, right?
Yeah.
And then you had the drifting thing come around, right? And drifting is what kind of really pushed it over the edge, where everybody started building stuff that did crazy burnouts, all kinds of, you know, like speeds.
Yeah.
You just drop it down a gear and smoke in the tires.
I don't know, but it just got too much. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah, I like doing burnouts with stuff that's not meant to do burnouts. Slant 6 dart, you know.
One of my like exactly that, right?
Right.
Exactly that. Like one of the highlights of my life, right, is that I wheelied a Honda. Oh God, what do they call those freaking things?
Trail 50.
House. No, it's like a house on wheels with a Goldwing. I had a customer bring me a Goldwing. It needed a starter, which was a crazy job all by itself, right? And when I was finished with it, I wheelied it. I got it to wheelie. You know, it took me like many tries, right? But finally, like standing up on the pegs, ripping the handlebars back while I dropped the clutch,
shifting all the weight.
just like right, and I got it to like come that far off the ground. And I was like, you know what? I wheelied a Goldwing.
Yeah, it's like those were like 6 cylinders back in the day, right? So
they had a lot of power. They had a serious lot of power. They also had a lot of weight. It was like a car.
Right.
It's Unity Motorsports Garage. It's Andy, and Andy has decided to help me with my carburetor issue with the Slant 6, and he's sending me a care package. I have no idea what's in the care package, but when it gets here, I'm going to open it up, be amazed by what he sent and his brilliance, and I will do a video on exactly what it is and how it affected the carburetor and so on and so forth. So, Andy, thank you, my brother.
So he's sending you a care package to get that carburetor sorted out.
He is sending me a mystery package. He says, all he said was, give me your address. So I gave him the address, and he says, I'm sending you a package. Right.
Well,
So
you
I
like
don't
my
know what's
package.
in the, I don't know what's in the package.
You don't like my package.
No, I hate your package. I would have given you the $40 for a fucking mic.
I know. I thought about actually showing up with another mic tonight, like a black one, and then just be like, "Hey, it was $120. How you feel about that?"
So yeah. So anyway, Andy says, you know, just send me your address. I'll send you what you need. So I have no idea what's in the package. I have no idea. So no, Tom, it's not a spacer. It doesn't need a freaking spacer. A spacer isn't going to fix the rain. Need metal. Thank you, man. Noise and burnouts for wannabe stealth is wealth. Go race a Tesla. I like that.
All right. So Abel D's asking, what's the most catastrophic engine failure to the simplest dumb engine building mistake? Can you give some pointers as to what to double check other than torquing of bolts? Well, torquing of bolts will easily end up in catastrophic engine failure, especially if it's rod bolts.
Well, I mean, well, I don't understand what he's asking.
He's asking
what is the most catastrophic engine failure?
You assembled an engine and you did a boo-boo in it, and it caused a horrendous thing, right?
Oh God.
I haven't had too many.
I haven't had any. I really haven't had any. Not catastrophic failure due to a mistake. I've made a zillion mistakes, but the worst was dropping a motor in the car, and as I'm cleaning up the shop, I found the upper part of the rear main seal.
Oh,
yeah.
Like, oh no.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever done. No, I've never had any. I've had catastrophic engine failure, but never due to a mistake or anything.
I made one. I made one big one that I kind of regret to this day, was incorrectly checking the push rod lengths when buying aftermarket push rods, right? And I put aftermarket heads on a block that had been decked, and I didn't think nothing of it. I threw the stock push rods back in, and I'm like, oh, these are too long, and then I got out a tape measure and I measured it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I need something that's almost a quarter inch shorter, so we'll go 150, 200 thousandths, okay. Right? Put it in there, no bueno, right? I mean, the rocker was still way long. So yeah. The rocker was riding on the back of the valve.
Okay.
But the geometry was so ganked up that it was like it would not oil well.
Yeah, but you didn't get catastrophic failure. Right?
No, I didn't. I ended up figuring, because it was clattering like hell.
Well, you're talking about it. I've done 1,000. I've had that issue 1,000 times where you assemble things that they're supposed to all work together. On paper, it all works out.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when you're going to put it together again, no, the rocker's like this, or the push rod's rubbing against this. Right. You know what I mean? I put together a roller cam motor in a pinch once. I had to get it done. And the only heads I had were the stock, small hole heads.
Okay.
So in a pinch, I ground the push rods. It was a roller motor, so the push rod the roller doesn't rotate.
It doesn't spin on the push rod, right?
So I just took the push rods and I brought them over to the bench grinder, and I just put a notch in each of the push rods.
So it would clear.
And it ran fine.
Huh. It didn't collapse the push rod?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, Ruckport says he left a cam bearing not in all the way.
Oof.
It didn't fail, but it didn't get oil up top. Yeah, that's a tough one. And that's one of the big ones. Is like pre-lubing it. I always pre-lube them without I don't know. I think I've shown you that I do it without the intake manifold on them usually, and that way you can see where the oil is actually going. Right.
See, I have never in my life pre-lubed an engine.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, I always do for the Buicks, because you got to pack the oil pump full. Well, see, and I don't know if Mopars are the same. You got to rebuild your oil pump when you take it apart.
No, what I do is so putting an engine together, all new stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll use an assembly lube. I used to love the BG stuff. I can't find a BG. Nobody carries BG locally.
I've never heard of it.
It's an assembly lube, but it's a high pressure additive. It's an assembly lube. It's an whole line of products. BG Performance. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, right? So when assembling a fresh motor, I love the BG stuff. We had a sponsorship with the Top Fuel Cards. They used to give us cases of it. But now I use either I'll use STP Motor Treatment, right? Just honey. You could use Lucas. So I coat the hell out of everything with that. I go nuts with that. And then I'll give the oil pump a squirt of whatever it is I'm using for a prelude, rotate it a time or two by hand, and then just assemble it.
Huh, all right.
And I have never in my life had a problem with.
Well, the Buicks, you got to reassemble the oil. It's like the only engine I've ever done where you just don't buy another oil pump.
Right,
right? So I was, the trick for the Buicks is packing full of Vaseline.
Okay.
Right? Whatever you're trying to put in the pump has to have a higher viscosity than what's in the pan, or else it'll never pull the oil from the pan.
Okay.
Right? So use Vaseline, and Vaseline breaks down in motor oil once it gets warm, just freaking disappears. It does thicken the oil, but no big deal. You just run it for. But though I always pre-lube them. I always, every time, just to verify they get oil up top. And probably.
Well, okay. What I'll do is now, right, is I'll, with the plugs out, I'll crank the motor. I'll make sure they got movement on the gauge.
Oh, oil pressure.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that does count as pre-lubing.
Well, so the reason why I do it is because if that pump doesn't draw, right, you're fucked. I mean, it'll start up and run,
right,
and it won't have any oil pressure. You'll never get oil pressure if that pump does not prime. So that's why I do that on the Buicks. Let's see. Derek McMillan says, "Have I a question about an '89 Shelby Dakota? I'd like to race it. If I put a Magnum roller in, can I still run it in a stock class?"
That's your.
Oh man, well, it depends what kind of stock class you're trying to run.
I'll be right back. Keep everybody entertained.
Oh, I'll try. Right, it's just me and the mic, so I only got one thing to do.
Jesus. All
right. So to tell you the truth, I'm not entirely sure. It depends what your stock class limitations are. 89 Shelby Dakota, I'm assuming probably the block might be capable of having rollers in it. So I don't see why you couldn't run a Magnum camshaft in it. So hopefully that helps you out. Danny Boyd says a set of heads like GT40s, a Performer RPM intake. Where did it go? I just lost it. Would make an improvement. Okay, he's just talking to somebody else. All right. Okay, Peter Kovacs found out that Jensen Interceptors came with a 6-pack setup in 71 and 72. How cool is that? I think it's pretty cool. I think, isn't that the video that Steve Magnante did? Abel D. Dallas, since you're into Buicks, have you ever thought of owning a Land Rover with a Rover V8 and trying to make a killer build engine? No, I have been dipping into the Rover parts stash, though, to work with the 300, 215, 340. I'm building another 300 right now. Matter of fact, I just picked it up the other day. So I was really impressed with the one I did for the guy in Florida, and wanted to kind of see if I could do something on the cheap. Okay, Jonathan Couchy says Lee Shepard put a 348 crank in a 427 Chevy to run pro stock. Is that the 366?
That will probably be close to a 366, but the 366 is a 12-deck truck motor.
Oh, well, I thought they were building a D-stroked short deck block that was 366.
They might have. I mean, it could come to that, but the 366 is an actual displacement, big block Chevy displacement.
Right. No, for a tall deck truck motor.
And they did it as a regular length connecting rod, but it was 4 rings.
Oh, man, talk about some friction.
Yeah.
Ari says he's got to dip out because he's got a bad connection over there, and he's going to try to rejoin.
We'll be here, man.
So Mopar Man 1978 says he uses BG oil additives. They're 44K and MOA, and they're RF7.
Yeah, I love the BG stuff, but nobody around here carries it.
Well, can you Amazon it?
Probably, but it's just, you know what it is when you're in the middle of putting something together and you're like, oh shit, I need some prelude. You know what I mean? It's like you don't.
Right.
You just run to the parts store and grab something.
Whatever's on the shelf.
You use that for 2 or 3 engines, 3 or 4 engines, and then.
Oh, Johnny Reiner is asking, when should you stud a 3.8 Buick or turbo Buick heads? Man, that's a good question. I know they only have 4 bolts per cylinder. The V6 Buick does. So when you start building boosts, probably I would have to say anything above 15 pounds, maybe. I would start studding them because I mean the good thing is the older blocks have the older style non-torque to yield head bolts. But if you're using something newer, you may run into that problem like about 10 pounds where it'll start lifting the head. Am I a fan of GM EOS for braking? What is EOS? Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure what it is. Crazy Cooter wants to know what's the highest horsepower motor you guys ever built? What's the highest horsepower motor you ever built?
Oh, highest horsepower motor I've ever built? I don't know. I built a 462 Buick, the one you remember you came over, we were doing the tech live and I kept revving that sucker up. That was probably the most highest horsepower one I've built because that one was probably 450 horse.
What about the one that's in your Thunderbird?
I didn't build that.
Oh, okay.
No, I had that one put together. I would have built it. I just ran out of time. I was in the middle of deploying. I did 4 deployments in 3 years, right? And I was literally like leaving on the first one, and I only had 3 days in between. And I called a guy. I said, "Hey, look, I got all the parts. I'll bring it up. Can you have it done in 9 months when I get home from deployment?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So I brought it up to him, and I come home 9 months later, and I call him, and he's like, "Oh man, give me a couple of weeks." Like, couple of weeks? It's been 9 months, dude. How long you need? You know, and
he was hoping your boat would sink while you were.
Maybe so.
He was counting on your boat going down. Mine was 6,000 horsepower. I used to build it like a couple of times every week.
Yeah, I can't compete with that.
A couple of times every week I had to build that. Mr. Wolf, thank you. Mr. Wolf sent a big, nice
whopping $10.
Yeah, well,
that's awesome.
UTM Big D. Big D. I like that. Move to 69 Charger. Oh, maybe he's talking about the
mic.
I moved to 69 Charger this weekend. When I hit the brakes, the pedal doesn't come back up. The brakes stay engaged. When I pull the pedal up, it disengages the discs. What do you think? I mean, I think really the only thing it could be is the master cylinder.
That's what I'm saying. I think it sounds like it might have had water in the master cylinder and it pitted the bore.
Yeah. The pedal swings on a nylon bushing, so that couldn't possibly be a hole up.
And the pressure, when you push down the pedal, it increases the pressure.
Oh, wait a minute. It's a disc brake car, so it means he's probably got power brake booster. Okay, was the engine. When I pull the brake pedal up at this gauge of the disc, what do you think? Was it with the engine running? Because if it was with the engine running, the power booster is bad.
Even with a bad booster, the pedal still comes back.
No.
Really?
And the Ford boosters, when the Ford boosters would go bad.
I guess if it was just completely dumping back, it wouldn't even run.
No, I'm telling you, I've had that happen.
Really?
You'll step on a brake, the engine's running, the booster goes bad, it'll just hold the pedal. Now on the night, I can't tell you the exact models because I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But on in 1970s, the Fords, I remember very specifically a Torino wagon, right? That a customer brought me. It was like a 73 Torino wagon, and they were like, the thing just jams on the brakes all by itself. And I was like, how is that possible? So I take this thing for a ride, right? And the brake seems normal. Everything's like, but when you hit the brakes, you can hear the booster go like that, right? And so finally, I'm just driving along, and all of a sudden it goes, what the hell happened there? And the brake pedal, the booster, sucked the brake pedal to the floor.
Oh, so the vacuum just pulled it down.
The vacuum pulled it down randomly and abruptly, like just out of the blue. And I had that. That was that one car that I had it on. Oh. But that's the only time I drove it had that happen. But I did have other people bring me cars to describe that problem, and I just automatically changed the booster. It was always a Ford. Huh. Maybe somebody here is familiar with.
Well, Jonathan Couchy says, how much does a valve job cost? I'm thinking about doing it on my Mopar 302 heads. You can kind of get away with them as long as it's just seats. If you're going to need guide work or you need valve replacement, you're going to need to take it to the machine shop.
Mr. Will says, yes, power brakes and the engine is running. Your booster is bad. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, but you can, I mean, a valve job, if everything's decent, usually costs about $150. It's not all that much. But if you want to do it on the cheap, go over and check out. Who's the guy that's channel does all the engines? Pops in here every now and then. Oh, what's his name? Richard Holdner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Holdner does a. He showed you how to do cheap valve job. Well, not too long ago, where he just does them the same way I do them, where you put a drill on the back of the valve and some lapping compound and lap them.
That's how I do them.
Do you?
Yeah. That Max Budge just absolutely says his Ranchero did that. Yeah, see?
Oh, rider of a pale horse asks, do rear axles have to be balanced?
No. The axle itself, no. No. What you really have to worry about balance when you get to something that's a bigger diameter. So a larger diameter of something, the more critical balance becomes. And when you're talking about something as thin as an axle shaft, no.
See, and this is Brian Power saying that the other thing I noticed with my bad brake booster is that if you mash the brakes, the vacuum leak will kill the motor. That's what I was saying. It wouldn't run. I've had bad boosters and they've been sucking vacuum so bad that the car won't run.
I've had that happen too. But boosters go bad in a few different ways.
Yeah. Well, I found it if you go pick up something that's been sitting for a long time, the first thing I always do is when you first fire the motor up, I vacuum cap everything, and then I hook one thing up at a time to verify it's even going to work. But I found so many bad boosters that way, and oh gosh.
Yeah, Danny Boyd saying Ford's had some failure-prone brake boosters back in the day. I've seen it on a '67 Mustang. Yeah, I remember it was only on the Fords. I've never seen that happen on anything else. I mean, I've seen bad boosters on everything, but that's the only one I ever saw that actually applied itself.
Well, Sam T says he had a square body Chevy with a bad booster, would pull the pedal to the floor when started.
Okay.
And I could see how it would do that. I mean, it's just vacuum operated, right?
Well, none of the manufacturers that I know of actually made their own brake boosters. They bought them from vendors.
Oh, right.
Like, Delco Marine and all of these different. So I guess it's just a characteristic of whichever manufacturer, whichever vendor that Ford or Chrysler or whatever bought them from.
Johnny Reiner's asking, what do bronze valve guides do for heads?
They lessen the chance of the valve sticking in the guide.
And they also wear a lot slower, I found. Because you have a steel guide riding the whole time, right?
Right.
It'll wear that guide. But when you put the bronze is so malleable that it lasts quite a while because it doesn't necessarily wear off.
Bobby Z, 1964. Standard operating procedure when I did tune-ups was pinching the vacuum line to the booster and every other vacuum hose if the thing idled bad. But the thing is, when you pinch off, because I've done it 1,000 times myself, but when you pinch off like a vacuum line, it's almost impossible to pinch unless it's a small line and using a very perfectly, like fitted pair of pliers to pinch it close. You're almost always going to get some vacuum pulling past there.
Abel D says, Uncle Tony in Dallas, guys working on Euro cars make a joke about losing their 10mm sockets. What's one tool you guys always lose? Half inch freaking wrenches, man.
I'm big with wrenches. Yeah. I like, oh God. Yeah. Oh, for me, it's 8mm, 5/16, 8mm sockets and wrenches.
Really?
I can never find either a 5/16 or it's the same wrench.
Right.
So I can never find one when I need one. Dimitri, thank you guys. Happy belated birthday. My birthday was like 6 months ago. Picked up that 79 Ferrari Duster after your advice, and I'm glad I did. No rust on the firewall. Drove it 200 miles home smooth. Anybody with clean dashboard, let me know. Awesome. Congratulations on your purchase. And anybody who's got a dashboard for this guy, man, hook him up. Thank you. Uncle Tony, shorts will get your channel lots of views. Please try this out.
Didn't you play with shorts? You did play with shorts, right?
Well, Kathy we got a lot of stuff. We just picked up a GoPro like 2 days ago. We're gonna be adding a lot of stuff, and we've got a Jeep channel coming, right?
You're creating a whole nother channel for Jeep?
Yeah. It's I don't want to give the name of it yet. I'm not gonna give the name of it yet. No, we've got a Jeep channel. Last night I have a couple that is actually going to be doing the actual on camera.
Uh-huh.
Right? I'm not going to. Well, I'll probably be occasionally on the channel, but it's not like my channel. It's UTG is producing a Jeep channel, so it's not me. It's UTG, and we shot test videos last night.
Oh, sweet.
And these guys did fantastic. They did great.
Well, good. So, yeah, I was definitely not a natural on camera. I was like,
oh, you are now, man.
Well, now I'm okay because it's been what, a year?
Well, I coached you through it. You know what I mean?
Well, that
I raised you up from a little pup.
If I can stand my manliness on here, you know, like I'm comfortable doing the show now, even with a weird looking dildo microphone on here. I still don't have problems with it. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to this Jeep, and they're part of a club called Jeeps and Wrenches. It's located here in Middle Tennessee.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a fun. It's gonna be a fun channel. It's gonna be a fun channel. Let's respect GoPro the Miata so I can compare my daily stock one.
Oh, did you ever find a guy that could drive that thing?
Yeah, Garrett is gonna drive it.
Okay, I was gonna say, you know, the guys from my Lemons group go race at the autocross stuff.
Well, nobody ever. I mean, they know I've got the freaking car sitting here, right?
Oh, my Lemons guys don't. But it was like every time I talked to you about it, no, there was somebody was like, "Oh, I'm gonna come drive it," and then they'd flake out. And
like, no, Garrett from the Junkyard Jet crew is going to take it. Let's see.
John Boomer says, "If I could survive the Navy, I can survive being on camera." Yeah, I'm not a camera person. I've never done this stuff before until like really Tony just showed up at my house one day to look at the Lemons car.
I don't remember what it was.
And then you were like, "What the hell is all this stuff?"
Well, the Buick stuff, yeah, man.
Miatas and Jeep Wranglers have the biggest aftermarket. I did not know that.
Well, it's funny, you have to get one of those biker wallets with a chain to go with the Sportster and a key ring and attach an 8mm wrench and socket. I had one of those wallets years ago. I was probably in my 20s. Vincent Marino, how do you determine spark plug gap? How does it affect the engine? Ooh, that's
well, if you're not going with the recommended, obviously, if you're not going with the recommended gap.
See, there is so many different variables to it.
Well, I know, and see, I know what I like. And
he has to be more specific. You got to be more specific because different engines and different types of engines, different uses require all different like philosophies as far as what the gap and heat range should be on a plug.
Luckily I started messing with stuff when it was the HEI, days,
right?
And almost everything had electronic ignition then. But the HEI always called, like for a Buick, was always like 55 thousandths, yeah. Right? Which was insane big compared to your points ignitions, which would be 35 thousandths.
Well, here's the thing with that. They went to the HEI, okay, specifically to go to the bigger gaps.
Right.
Like for instance, Chrysler, they went to electronic ignition, but they never changed the output of the coil. They still used
the same coil.
And it's worked between 18 and 20,000 volts.
Okay.
So even though Chrysler went to electronic ignition, they did not up the voltage out of the coil.
Okay.
General Motors went to 40,000 volts.
Right.
And they did that to get the big gaps.
Right.
So that they could calibrate their motors lean.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I just know that the bigger the gap, I found there is power to be had with opening up the gap. Right. Now, the only downside I've seen is you can burn up ignition components left and right. You run too big of a gap, right? Yep. Like say if it's recommended 55 thousandths and I took the HEI out to 65 thousandths, I might be replacing the coil every couple thousand miles.
Okay, but now you're talking about basically stock engines.
Right.
Now you go the other way, and let's say you're talking about a super high compression,
right?
High performance, high RPM motor, especially a blown motor. You close the gap, right? Like for instance, you talk about a blown alcohol, blown nitro motor. You're looking at an 18 to 20 thousandths plug gap because too big of a gap, the spark literally gets blown out.
Yeah, well, it's all based on cylinder pressure. It can't jump the gap. Essentially, the more cylinder pressure you have. See, and then that used to be a nitrous trick. Was you remember when the 5-liter Mustangs, everybody started throwing nitrous at them,
Yep.
and they would leave the stock gapping in them, and you would start missing at the top end, right? And oh man, I can't figure out why it's missing. Because your gap is too big. You got to close the gap.
Close down the gap. So that's why you asked how you determine what the gap is. It's all over the map. It's every situation requires a different gap. Anthony Pernas threw us a super chat. Thank you, Anthony. Tony Dallas. You notice how my name always comes first. So
it's your
never
show.
Dallas and Tony.
It's your show.
Well, yeah, I don't think of it as my show. It's our show. It's on my channel, but it's our show.
And this is our mic.
No, it's your mic. I have nothing to do with that mic. Although I did use it the other night. Tony Dallas, I tried to move my car to the new lot tonight. I bought a used tow dolly, and I can't get the pin to slide in to tilt the ramps. I heated and sprayed it like crazy, but it didn't help. Any ideas? Shock it. Then take a hammer and just bang, 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 bang. Just shock it from every direction and see if that helps.
Man, that's one of those things that if it's rusted into place, good luck, right? Because here's one thing that people don't understand about rust. Something when it rusts, it actually expands the metal, right? And the metal expands and it'll fill up gaps to where you can't get stuff out. Oh man. Johnny Reiner asked the ultimate Hemi question.
What's that?
If you are a nitro guy, is it 392 or is it 426?
Well, I was a nitro guy.
I know.
And I'm in both.
Which one was it? Like, I know everybody was very in love with the 392 until Garlett's accidentally figured out how to make the 426 run. Right.
Well, but we're so far beyond that now.
I know.
You're talking about in.
He's just asking 392 versus 426.
426. 426. For a lot of reasons. Mostly ease of serviceability and all.
What is it?
And performance-wise, they're pretty equal.
Dick Dastardly saying he gaps his plugs at 30 on his max wedge. Is that good?
That's about right.
Yeah, it's points ignition, right? It should be fine.
Well, probably not points, but I mean, yeah, 35,000 is probably all right. Bobby's E1964. Remember, right? Some GM HCIs were something crazy like 80,000. Yeah,
that's the low compression ones, like the what was that lame Oldsmobile?
The Pontiac
260 and the 301.
The 301 Pontiac had like for a year or two, it had like an 80,000 gap.
Yeah, and it was running like 17-to-1 air fuel ratio.
Oh, those things were terrible.
Oh man.
Need metal, stronger ignition, bigger gap? No, not necessarily. It depends on what's happening in the combustion chamber. Not the voltage is secondary to that.
Yeah, Bad Tree Production says BFH.
BFH.
The Arbor Press.
Rust weld is a pain. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, hey, I didn't tell you this, but today I had 2 hours of just killing time waiting for some guys to show up to change the window on my wife's Expedition.
Okay.
Right? I worked on my 63 Buick Superstocker, and I got it cleaned up, a lot of crap out of it, right?
Okay, it's a step in the right direction.
Right. I got the motor, I just dropped a bare block in there with the bell housing on it. I figured I'm going to have to cut the floor pan out. The transmission tunnel. I'm kind of wondering, should I just go to the junkyard and find a transmission tunnel or something and just weld it in there? I don't see it being more complicated than that.
I wouldn't do anything with that until you put a drivetrain in it.
As far
as the tranny tunnel goes, I would cut out the old tranny tunnel, right?
And just leave it like it is?
Leave it there until you put a transmission in, because you're still going to put a blanket or whatever. Oh, no, you're running a manual.
Manual, yeah.
But then again, you don't know where the shift linkage is going to sit.
And I don't know, right, and I don't know where the shifter is going to sit in there, and where I got to put the tunnel piece and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would say make that the last thing.
Well, I was kind of...
Make it removable.
Well, that's why I was saying... I'm kind of on the fence on what to do with this, because see that, all right, so those cars were made with a really small tunnel. We talked about this,
right?
Because it was Buick wanted the big flat floor, right? That was the comfort spacious thing.
Right.
So if I cut it out, and I'm looking at floor pans for like a 66 Nova, right? Where I can just take the tunnel off and I can use the transmission tunnel with the setup for a 4-speed manual. I can buy the little deal. And for that Buick, it's like $300 for a reproduction panel for a manual.
Jair in here says, mine 392 is in the garage. It came from Bob Sullivan's Pandemonium car.
Oh,
Which one? Was it like the original 64 car, or was it one of the later ones?
I'm assuming that 392 was from the early one. It would have to be from the early one, right? Or that funny car era, or like altered wheelbase.
Pre-altered wheelbase.
Right, he would have been the first one of the very first cars, right?
He was out there in 64 with a Barracuda. It was a completely stock Barracuda with a blown fuel 392 in it.
And it was up under the cowl, right?
No,
It wasn't even all the way up.
No, it was in the stock location.
Oh wow!
And it had a stock front suspension.
Oh, with the torsion bar?
It was I don't remember how we got the exhaust out of it, because the exhaust is a nightmare on that. But no, it was the original Pandemonium car was literally a completely stock Barracuda.
I think I threw a picture up there, the Drag Racing History channel of the Pandemonium car. Rider of a Pale Horse says, just left a building that had 30 plus 426 Hemis in it. Guess where it was?
Probably the Girls Museum.
Or he could have been. Who would you take that block to for the 67 GTX?
Yeah, Ray Martin. He'd probably have at least that many in there too. Tony's closet.
For all those Hemis.
Uncle Kathy can tell you when I was doing that whole thing, every closet in my house had a stack of Hemi heads in it. I had a countless number of freaking heads.
Oh, I've always been jealous. Did I ever tell you my very first car was a 68 Barracuda 340 Formula S car? So when I went to pick the car up, the guy's like, "Oh, hey, I got a tranny you can have." It was a cast iron 833, right? Okay. All right, so I go in. He's got this big machine shed. He opens it up. This is the cast iron tranny sitting there on the floor, and then there's like a pile of Hemis, literally like a pile of them. And I'm like, "Holy crap, man! Can I get one of those?" He said, "No, none of them are for sale." Okay, of course they're not.
Let's see.
Yeah, but since then, he actually had an auction and sold everything off.
Racing with Power Motors. Got a turbo car, a tuned, got spark blowout with factory plugs and gaps. MSD coil on plug upgrade, solved it for several thousand miles. You put the MSD coil on plugs and that helped you. Why didn't you just close the gap?
Or you could put E3s in it.
The Hemi heads in your closet. Yeah, bro, it was sick. It was sick. Okay, so I had a two-car garage. This is in New York, and I had a fuel altered, and I kept that on the one bay. I used the other bay to fix customers' cars, and then the back room, the storage room, was all blocks. It was all Hemi blocks. I had every. If Mac Wadagno was still here, Matt Canick, are you still here? Because he was a regular in my place in New York. The back room I had every single variation of the Chrysler Hemi block. I had all three of the early Hemis. I had probably 3 or 4 standard street Hemi type blocks, 64 to 69. I had a D5 back there. I had a couple of 70, 71 blocks. I had a KB, a JP1. It was before the TFXs and everything came out. What else did I have? I had a Mylodon. All this stuff was stacked up in the back room, along with other, trinkets, odds and ends. And then in my house, in the closets, I had Hemi heads on the floor. They were just stacked everywhere.
So Abel D is saying, I want to do the paint weight test experiment. What do you guys think should be the criteria? Abel, you can save yourself some time. Tony and I are going to do it, but we've already talked about it. We were talking about doing a fender and just taking it all off a fender. But I think the smart thing, the last thing we talked about doing was getting a panel of steel that's a foot by foot. So you have a square foot.
Let's just do a fender. Let's just do a simple fender. We'll weigh the fender before.
Right.
Paint it and weigh it again. Here's what we have to do.
I don't think if you do a square foot, then you could actually say, okay, this is how much it is a square foot. And you just need to find the square footage of your car.
But we could paint the fender and make it easy for me. Because I'll just be painting a fender.
Right. Well, it is all, I don't know, it's all relative, I guess.
So here's how we do this, okay? We weigh the fender, okay? Mm-hmm. Then we weigh the weigh the,
Well, we strip the fender,
strip the
then
fender,
weigh it. And then what you do is you apply 2 coats of primer and you weigh it.
Right. But that's only part of it. We need to figure out how much paint went on there. Okay, how much paint was actually consumed, and then weigh the paint itself.
Oh, before we paint it?
No, after, because you don't know how much.
Well, you'd have to weigh it before and then weigh it after you paint it, right? So that you know how much you lost.
You weigh the fender, right? Exactly. You weigh the fender before. You prime it and paint it. You weigh it after.
You know that's not going to work either, because you're going to pour a reducer in it and the whole 9 yards.
But all in all, that counts. So here's what you do, right? So we paint the fender, right? We prime and paint the fender, weigh it bare, then prime it and paint it, weigh it. Then we figure out how much paint went into.
Oh yeah, fender, so that way we have a number for this is how much your materials weighed to begin with,
right?
And this is how much we used, but this is how much added,
right?
Right.
Or what we could do is take here's a way to do it. Okay, I like this too. We take a quart of paint. Okay, a whole quart. We take one of the cars, like Slayhammer, or one of these cars that's out here, right? And we spray the whole quart onto the car. And that wouldn't work because we gotta weigh the car.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I got scales.
I have scales too. Oh, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Not hard. But somebody was saying, weigh the gun. Weigh the gun before you paint. Weigh the gun after.
Oh yeah. Okay, there you go. That's a good idea. Wait, that's how we. Okay, see, that's why we need people with minds. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I couldn't have thought of it. I would have sat here for the next 4 days trying to figure out what's the best way to. Yeah, weigh the gun before and after.
That's what we were looking at doing, was take a fishing scale, put the fender, hang it on there, and then just apply the paint and see what the weight does.
Right. Danny boy, but that doesn't tell you how much paint was lost to overspray or left in the brush or whatever. No, but you're right about that. Here's the thing though, okay, so people will say, well, if a gallon of paint weighs 8 pounds, let's just say, and you paint the car, you're adding 8 pounds to the car. And that's not true, because you're right. You have solvents that evaporate, and you have some of it that's lost to overspray and everything else. So what is the actual weight? If you're going to paint the car, what is the actual weight of the paint itself on the car?
Cut Your Teeth is asking a kind of cool question. I've got a 64 Wildcat with a 401. I want to swap out the ST400 for a T10. Wondering if I'm going to need a Buick specific T10, or do they interchange, and where could I find a bell housing? Thanks, guys. All right, so this is a kind of a neat thing that I've been kicking around for a while. Is stuff like this. Buicks with manuals there wasn't a lot of options back in the day, so you got to kind of come up with something if you want a manual behind a Buick. All right, so a 401 has its own specific bell housing in 64. It's a nail head bell housing. There's no way around it. You've got to find a nail head manual bell housing. No way that you can do it without that. All right, now you probably can turn one up. They're not too complicated to find, I don't think. And I'm sure there's aftermarket companies that will repop them. The tranny, on the other hand, you can use any T10.
Yeah, it's going to be a universal bolt pattern on the transmission. It's the bell housing to the motor that's going to be specific.
Right. Now, here's a neat thing I'll throw at you. If you want a manual, and that's what you want to run as a manual, Chevrolet trucks from 81 to 87 came with a Chrysler A833 overdrive, right? But it bolts up to a GM bell housing with a GM input shaft.
Right, and you can plug any 833 4-speed into it. So even though it came with
an overdrive.
Now you are going to have to do something with the bearing retainer, because
actually for that one it's going to be the same. It's a GM specific, because it came behind Chevrolet trucks.
That's right.
But you can score those cheap, and then you can swap out the 833.
No, wait a second. No. The bearing retainer for the 833 overdrive, okay, is 5 1/4 or 5.09 inches. I might be off, but it's just over 5 inches. The one for the standard 833 is 4 inches. And there's 2 different sizes of that. So you would need to machine, or have somebody machine, a spacer between the bell housing and the earlier 833.
Oh, and I was just looking at using that you can use the A833 overdrive out of those Chevrolet trucks and put it in there,
Right.
and it's meant to bolt up to a GM bell housing. It has the ears and everything for it, so you can just score them out of those trucks for cheap. You can get them for like $400 or $500, and they'll have a Hearst shifter that comes with it.
Oh, Johnny Reno, this is the guy with the pandemonium. Okay, he's got the one out of the dragster, but isn't the one in the dragster is not the one that ended up in the Barracuda? Rod Stuckey designed double fuel dragster, probably 22. Yeah, I thought that was the motor that ended up in the Barracuda.
Bobby Z 1964 says, "Damn, Buick Talk almost bought a 455 from a 72 Riviera the other day
For
my Dodge truck." That's funny. That'll work great, man. It'll pull like mad. Oh, Johnny Renner's talking about.
In 63, Sullivan set another AHRA speed record of 196 miles an hour and 773 ET. The same year, he won the AHRA 1/8 mile championships. I didn't know they had a 1/8 mile championship.
Oh, they ran all kinds of stuff back then. Because AHRA catered to the tracks and the racers, right? And so if all you have was 8-mile track.
Well, in the Midwest, you'd have a bunch of them. Maybe he was from Missouri. Zero is here. What's happening, brother man?
Yeah, Mr. Will, you could have got a stage 1 Buick in almost anything Buick offered if you were willing to pay the bill, right? But that's what was neat about the Riviera. Anything you got, anything that Buick had that was performance related, including the stage 2 package, you could have got it on a Riviera.
John Wilburn says 0. Oh, he's greeting 0. Okay. Hitlow, the 3-speed is perfect for racing. Not really. It's perfect for like circle track racing. That's like roundy round guys.
Record racing.
Yeah. Doug Nunn, Tony Nells, ever thought about running a standing mile just for kicks? Not my cup of tea. Yeah, I mean, I everybody thinks about doing something like that. Like, yeah, the thought has crossed my mind.
Well, do you want to do one?
No.
I got my T-Bird, man. It was meant to go over 200 from the factory.
Yeah,
and then we just change the rear end gear, put 273s in it.
I don't want to. I don't want to listen to the thing go for that period of time.
It just sounds odd. It does.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do it.
Oh man, that's got to be hard on stuff.
Bad Tree Productions. Any of you guys try ice or mud drag? Seems interesting. I may. Okay, so I got. Yeah, there's a possibility we try mud drags in the not too distant future. Ice drags, no man, it's too cold. I don't want to deal with that.
That's too far away. We'd have to go all the way to Minnesota or something for that, right? Anthony Perna says the Olds 455 is one of the best engines GM ever made. I've never had one.
Wendy Brufka says you guys are wrong about paint not weighing anything. Do the test. I didn't say it didn't weigh anything, but it doesn't weigh what it weighs in the can.
No, because all the solvents evaporate.
Right. Well, we are going to do the test. He's just been busy. He's been running around. He's got.
Oh, I just finished up the season. Well, I haven't finished it yet, technically. I got another event October 16th and 17th, but that's the last one for the year. And then I'll be back to, hey, let's do some neat stuff. And I'll have a little bit of extra time.
Brian Powers asks, what about sand drags? They don't have anything like that around here. Have you ever seen I believe it's in Louisiana, they have a place called Planet Sand.
Oh, no, I've never heard of it.
It's a sand drag strip in Louisiana, okay? And if you guys want to see an amazing vehicle, you want to see something that's just like, will just absolutely blow your mind, right? One of the wickedest things I've ever seen. There's a car, bike, it's you got to see it. It's weird, okay? Called Wild Thing. Just Google. You get your phone?
I do.
You're gonna love this. Just put in Planet Sand Wild Thing.
Okay.
I saw this and I was like, oh God, I need this. But alas, I just got too many things going on in my life.
It's a Wild Thing, right?
Wild Thing, sand drags.
Okay. Oh man, is this a bike trike?
It's got a blown nitro 4-cylinder bike motor in it. and it weighs probably about 400 pounds.
If that. All right, so here's Planet Sand. I'm looking at it right now. It's a video on YouTube. Sand Drags 2010.
You got to turn the sound up.
Okay. All right, so this is a tube frame bike. You sure that's a motorcycle motor?
Yeah.
All right, so it's paddle tired, tube chassis, motorcycle motor with a blower and nitro. And it looks about as sketchy
as... Watch this. You got to see the thing at night.
This dude's got some nuts. I don't know how he's
got
over.
Giant cojones. And look where he's sitting on the thing.
Oh, I know. It's like nothing. And he's the ballast.
Yeah, well, you see the sand over the Cadillac North Star engine in the hole. You ain't seen nothing like this. I'm telling you. Planet Sand wild thing.
Oh, dude, this thing's nuts. All right.
They only run for 300 feet.
Right. And this thing
that's 300 feet of just pure hell.
Well, he was on it hard, like, dump the clutch and go, or whatever he was doing. I don't know, just crack the throttle. But it literally was like gone, just like a top fuel dragster, with like probably 4 feet of flames coming out of the exhaust.
Let's see. Doug Gordon says we have a huge drag boat community in my neighborhood. Those guys have fortunes tied up in their boats. Yeah. What neighborhood are you in that you have a big drag boat community?
Oh, he's got to live near the water or something.
Yeah, well, it could be maybe by the lakes, by the Great Lakes. I don't know. It's something. See, drag boats are like something that's just been totally foreign to me because I'm from New York City. You know what I mean? And there's nothing like that out there. And then now we live in the Midwest.
I grew up in the Midwest, and there was no drag boats. I'm sure there probably was, but I didn't know anybody.
Those guys are just insane. I worked for a guy, a couple of races. Bill Blair had a top fuel car called the Fagawi, and he had 2 cars. And I worked crew on one of the cars. It was driven by Wayne Bailey, who got killed right after we. But anyway, that's besides the point. But he had drag boats. Those people are nuts.
Benjamin C. says, hey, Uncle Tony in Dallas, any experience with Howard's cams? They claim to be Rockwell tested and American made.
I don't have any specific experience with them.
I've never used them. I bought a set of lifters from them for my 392 in my or my 393 Windsor in my Ford truck, and they clatter. That's the only thing I know of.
Zero says we have FAP here. Offshore Engine God. Keith Black was big with the offshore, and Ed Pink.
And Eddie Hill, the Thrill.
Eddie Hill, that's right.
He was a drag boat racer, and then went drag racing, top fuel dragsters, and then went back to drag boats, right?
I think he retired altogether.
Did he?
Yeah. Well, I know that the first motor that he had in a drag, I used to hang out with Fuzzy Carter.
Uh-huh.
He was his crew chief.
Right.
And the first motor that was in the dragster, that they put in the dragster, was they had to dig out of the lid. It was at the bottom of a lake.
The motor was?
The motor was, because it was in his drag boat. He crashed the
crashed
drag boat. The motor was at the bottom of the lake. They pulled the motor out of the bottom of the lake, went through it, and then bought a dragster chassis and stuck it in there. And that was the first Eddie Hill top fuel car. Jonathan Couchy, thank you, sir.
Hey, this brings up a question because I talked to you about this.
Okay.
All right.
What is the advantage of a polysphere head versus a Hemi canted valve and wedge head? I don't think people realize how much potential the 318.
Oh, yeah, well, you're talking to the right group, because me and Tony actually just talked about this the other day. I like the polysphere, and I think there's a lot of potential there.
There is. The problem with the Chrysler Poly is the exhaust port. It's a very small exhaust port. It's an awkwardly shaped exhaust port, and there's water jackets right next to it, so you can't really do very much with it. Now, there is a guy, his name is Bob Toth, T-O-T-H, I believe it is. And his universe is polysphere Chryslers, and he's gotten some crazy horsepower. Like I think he's got almost 600 horsepower, normally aspirated out of a Chrysler.
318?
Yeah, out of a 318 poly.
So I'll tell you,
but that's not something you're going to do on a whim. This is a guy who's been like edit for a long time, so he's trialed and errored everything under the sun, and he's got the right can, he's got the right valve and the right, whatever it is, and he's got the right cam timing and everything else. So he's got super science involved in this. I don't think anybody's going to really be able to just easily duplicate those numbers. What are you going to say?
Well, we talked about this the other day, and I had this epiphany because Tony did a video where he had your 318 LA right next to the Magnum motor, right?
Right.
And you were showing the differences between the two, and it was like, holy crap! What if we did a Magnum polysphere motor? Drop some poly heads on a 360 Magnum block, right? And you could either add a stroker crank or you not. You could leave it at 360, but they never came with that big bore, and it would unshroud those valves really well, right?
Yeah, but the problem is the exhaust port. See, as good as the LA and Magnum exhaust port is as bad as the poly exhaust port is. So you've got a superior combustion chamber, but
so David Bizard in one of his videos said if you have a Hurton exhaust port, you overcome that by compression, forcing the exhaust out, right?
And that works to an extent, but during the overlap period when you've got your scavenging, there's no amount of compression that's going to compensate for that.
Is it that bad?
Yes.
The poly head is that bad.
I'll have to get you a head. I've had heads, and I looked at them and I'm like, I just don't want to. I don't want to devote my life to this.
Can you raise the port?
No.
You can't do it any
the way the water jackets. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'll show you one and you'll be like, yeah, I get it. Adam Ressier, any value of running an air shock on the right rear of a G body like a bottle rocket? For years, people did that. Actually, the whole concept of boosting up the right rear corner of the car with air comes from G bodies, or actually trailing link GM cars.
The poor man's four links.
Yeah, back in the day, those guys, they used to put a football. They would take the spring out, put a football in the spring, pump the football up, and that took the place of that. And there's probably people who still do that, to this day.
And airbags, they started going to airbags, which is virtually the same thing.
Yeah. So it's just that what I did with bottle rocket is not unusual. It's been done since the 60s. I do it with an air shock. And I've always done it with an air shock. And any high performance Chrysler product that I've ever done, I put an air shock on the right rear. It's just like standard operating procedure. But GM guys with the trailing arms, they used footballs, right? And they literally took a football, right? Deflate the football, stick it in the spring, put the spring back in the car, and then inflate the football.
Air up the football. So Doug Feeler.
Yeah, Wild Rose Garage. I run a football at 10 PSI in a G-body. See?
Douglas Feeler says, what's the best Chrysler motor like a 327 Chevy with high rev potential, 302 Chevy Trans Am racing? 340 Chrysler.
The 340. Well, if you're talking about the 302, they had the 305 Trans Am, which was never put on the street, but they had to compete with the 302 Chevy in the Trans Am series. Chrysler had a 305 cubic inch D-stroke 340.
Can you put the 273 was a good running motor when they were running them in SCCA racing, but
the was too small.
Right, but is it the same crank as a 340?
Yes.
Okay, so it has the rev potential.
Well, actually, the 273 crank is slightly lighter, and it's the same material. And one of the upgrades for a 340 is to put the 273 crank.
273 crank. Yeah. Huh. So, and that was one of the things. Somebody's putting up a DZ302. Remember last year I told you about the idea I wanted to make an EZ302.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a crank out of one of those, what is it, 4.3 V8 LT motor and put it in a Chevy truck 350 block with a roller cam. I think the thing will run all over a DZ302.
Well, let's put your Buick together first.
Oh, I know. This is a whole bunch of stuff. Oh man, Caesar OSO is asking a Buick question. For a 70 Skylark with an upgraded 354 barrel with an M20, any recommendations related to the ratio for a strong response in the rear? Factory 8.2 BOP, no changes to swap this.
I might have had a brain tumor. What's an M20? I don't
The
remember.
Muncie.
That's M22.
No, you have M20, M21, M22, right?
Which was the M20?
It was the small one, right? The wide ratio small one.
Is it? I don't know.
I'm pretty
completely
certain it
unfamiliar with
is. I'm pretty certain that's what it is. But I'm assuming it's a Muncie.
Oh, it's definitely a Muncie. But can anybody tell me specifically what the M20 was?
I think it was the one that replaced that Dearborn 3-speed I was telling you about. But anyway, to help you out with your question, even if it's an M21 or M22, I would actually do probably a 342 or 373 gear in that. And I think that would be the ideal gear for the situation. Now, how are you wanting to drive the car? That's the big question. I mean, if you're wanting to run 80 miles an hour down the interstate, that's probably not the gear set you want.
Yeah, the M22, I know the M22, but I've never heard of the M20. I don't know what the difference is between the M20 and the M22.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Uncle Tony, have you ever put a set of cam bearings in backwards? I put them upside down and sideways. I put them in like I like to put them in sideways.
See, okay, so racing with
Steve Baggs would know what an M20 is because he's so much smarter than I am.
Racing with Paramotor says both the M20 wide ratio and M21 close ratio transmissions were first offered in '63.
I see. The M21 I know was a wide ratio 4-speed. I had never heard of the M20, or maybe I did, and it just. Jonathan Cauchy, thank you, man. My final 10 for today. Thank you. The 318 poly bored out to a 340. That's.
No, I'm telling you.
You can. I know, but it's a reach, man.
I started looking at this when we were talking, when I was asking you about it.
Right.
There's a guy, he took it in, the 318, it could bore that poly block out 125 over.
Well, right? That's 130 over.
To that 340?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be a bit.
But that's what I'm saying. It's pushing it. It's pushing it. I know it's been done, but it's pushing it. You got to really know that block is good. It's not worth it thieving for that extra couple of cubic inches, but that's besides the point. With short crank for 305. I also heard some people made a 392 poly with 354 polysphere heads. That would be interesting. Okay, so here's the thing. You had three different polys. You had the Chrysler poly, which is the 354 Spitfire, right? And that's the same exact block as a 354 Hemi with a different piston because it has a valve relief for the exhaust and polyspherical cylinder heads. Okay, that's one poly. Then you had the Dodge poly, right? The Dodge poly was the same exact thing. It was a Dodge Hemi, right? The first generation Dodge Hemi with the polyspherical combustion chambers. Then you had the Plymouth poly. The Plymouth poly was started at 277 cubic inches and then grew to the 318, that the A motor. And the A motor became the LA motor. The LA motor became the Magnum. Okay, so you can't put Chrysler poly heads on an LA block, and you can't put Dodge poly heads on an LA block. The LA block that we have today is the Plymouth poly, and that was from 1954. Was it 1954? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. Right up to 1966, they ran that engine.
I just remember, like in the 90s, when you'd open the hood, like, ooh, man, a Chrysler, and you go open the hood thinking it's going to be a Hemi, and it's like a 318 poly, and you're like, oh, and
but they
I've
weren't
seen so many.
They were 354s.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, it's a Hemi block with the polysphere cylinder.
Most guys would go, oh man, leave it in the junkyard. It's not even worth it messing with it.
Now here's trivia for you, okay? In the 50s, when they were producing these things, they didn't call them Hemis, and they didn't call them polys. The word Hemi was like our word, the hot rodders word. The Chrysler called them a double rocker shaft engine. And they called the polysphere, they called polysphere, they called that a single rocker shaft engine. So if you get like a factory service manual for, like, let's say, a 1956 Chrysler service manual, you'll see that they refer to the single rocker shaft engine and the double rocker shaft engine. And that's the poly and the Hemi. Uh-oh.
What's that?
I think it just died. And we're locked up.
Why would you say that?
Well, look, nothing's changed. Oh, there it is.
No, I was getting ready to read. Jean-Pierre Babineau says, hey there, I have a question. I have a 74 Chevy 350, and it was a 2-barrel carburetor, and I changed it to a 4-barrel Rochester. When I floor it, it spits and sputters. The secondary is not working right. Okay. You got to troubleshoot that quadrojet as like 2 separate carburetors.
Yeah.
First, you got to troubleshoot the primary side. And so what you'll do is at the very bottom on the passenger side, there's a little lever that catches the secondaries when the choke is engaged. You want to lock that with like a piece of wire, and then troubleshoot the primaries. If it doesn't fall on its face with the primaries, then your problem is in the secondaries. The biggest thing on the secondaries that people screw up is, one, they throw the biggest freaking metering rods you can find in there at it, and that's not the way to go.
It's probably a stock one. I assume it's a stock one.
And the second one is there's a spring that is adjustable that opens that air door at the top. And what happens over time is that spring weakens, and that the lock that holds it in place sometimes backs off.
Yeah, and then it'll just flop open, and it'll give you that spit.
It'll give you that spitting and sputtering.
But more than likely, you just have a weak accelerator pump.
And that could be it too, because they were notorious for it.
Auto 1303. Any advantages to dual spark plug heads? The only real advantage to a dual spark plug head is that you use less ignition timing. It requires less total timing to make the same to propagate the same flame and get it across the chamber. So let's say you find optimum ignition timing. Let's just say at 36 degrees. Just pull the number out of my ass. With dual plug heads, you would find optimum timing at 32 degrees. It'd probably be like a 4-degree difference or thereabouts. Now I can tell you that when we went from when we were racing the top fuel cars with the nitro cars, when we went from this was actually a funny car where I ordered this, was when we went from the single plug head to a dual plug head. With the single plug head, the standard tune-up was 67 degrees before top dead center. That was total timing, right? And then when we went to the dual plug head, it was 55 degrees. So the difference between single plug and dual plug in that particular application, not in like, any other, but just in that blown nitro application, the difference was 12 or 13 degrees difference in the speed of flame propagation because of the fire starting at 2 different sections. But also fuel demand went up. Right, it ate a lot more fuel than, because at that point we were still running small fuel pumps. We had the Enderley 1200s on them.
And you had to up the pumps.
Yeah. So the change, it was a very painful thing. We burned up a lot of stuff learning that, because that information isn't shared. It's just like, okay, I already got to figure it out. Now we got to figure this out. So the first time we ran dual plugs, just going from single to dual, leveled everything, like just destroyed everything, right? Just total carnage, right? And then so when we figured out about the timing, so we bring the timer back, because the motor had all signs of detonation. But then we got that back, and then found that the thing was just lean, and we were running 1200 pumps, and then we were running them like 25 over with the single plug, and then we went to dual plug. We had to go like 35 over, which was like the absolute limit for those pumps. You couldn't spin them any faster, or they would just cavitate. So there are major differences. Mr. Will, thank you, sir. UT, is there any other power booster that I can swap on my Charger? I rebuilt mine 15 years ago because I could not get a new one back then. I don't know. I mean, oh God. Any B body, and that includes the later cars. You don't have a Hemi in it, right? The Hemi would be a problem. But if you've got just a 440 or big block, small block, doesn't make any difference. You can use a power booster up to 1977 or 1978, like a Cordova body car will fit in there. But I couldn't give you an exact. Donald Davidson, good name. Just turned into an 88 Dippy LA 318 LA motor and has a roller cam and rockers. Well, it doesn't have roller rockers, it has roller cam. Obvious pre-magnum design, 80 suggestions. Yeah, no, the 318 went to rollers in 1985. Was it 85? It might have been 86. I don't know. But yeah, that's a normal thing. If it had roller rockers, somebody put them in because the car didn't have roller rockers from the factory. Vince Rencher, hello, the race of gentlemen is this weekend in Wildwood, New Jersey. That is one of the few, there are very few things I want to see. Have you ever seen that? The race of gentlemen?
I haven't actually seen it live.
But you know what it is, right?
Oh, I do.
That is the coolest thing. That's one of the, I've seen everything. I have seen goats fuck in the marketplace. I've seen it all, okay? But I've never seen that, and I would love to see it. That looks like those guys are having an absolute blast with that.
Oddball thought. Brian Power asks, oddball thought for Dallas, has he considered talking to the NTPA for split use with them on their short tracks for dirt drags?
That could be fun.
Most average about 400 to 600 feet. Might be good for nostalgia or a test night. I'm trying to figure out what he's asking.
Teaming up with the NTPA.
I don't know who that is.
The National Tractor Pull Association. Yeah. And they have a big meet right over here in College Grove.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anthony Perna, Tony, is that why Ford thought it was a good idea to put twin plugs on the 2.3? They probably did it for emissions purposes.
They did, but there was also another thing too. If you remember, 2.3 liters before the twin plug setup used to blow out rear main seals. They were notorious for eating rear main seals, and that solved it.
Did it?
That solved it.
How so?
I have no idea. It had something to do with cylinder pressure. It probably was evacuating the crankcase. They didn't have to run as much crankcase evacuation because there wasn't much. Well, I don't know. Honestly, that was the big thing. I do remember that though, in like 91 or 2 when they came out with those twin plug heads in the 2.3s.
Mr. Will saw the race of gentlemen in Wildwood. It is absolutely awesome. Yeah, no, I'm telling you, that's one of the few things I would really like to go see.
Well, also what this coming weekend is the 4th this coming weekend? 6th. I don't know. Whatever is this weekend is that hill climb in Indiana too.
Really?
Yeah. Where they got to take the old antique cars and hill climb them, or antique bikes?
I didn't.
Oh no, you don't know what that one?
No.
Oh, I can't remember what it's some town in Indiana. Maybe somebody on here knows where it's at. But there's this I will say it's probably 8% grade and hill.
Okay.
Right? And it's got to be the cars are from say 62 and before or something.
Okay.
And all you do is a standing start and you run up the hill. And by the time you get to the top, they might be going 4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. Right. And then they crest the hill and it's all based on time.
That sounds like fun. Well, the race of gentlemen, they drag race on sand.
Right.
On the beach.
Yeah.
Peter Kovacs, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Okay, Jason's Garage says it's the Devil's Staircase in Oregonia, Ohio.
No, it's in Indiana. Let's see.
Wheelie King had a 71 Pinto with a 2.3 Esslinger head. Not familiar with it. And a small turbo. Last thing my dad and I built together, that motor took a beating. Car was a riot. When I was a kid, I was a teenager, there was a guy on Staten Island. We used to call him Dad, right? He was like our age. He was a teenager too, but he used to wear button shirts. You know what I mean? We were just greasy gearhead punks.
There you go.
Right?
Newport, Indiana. It's the Newport Antique Auto Hill Climb, October 1st through the 3rd, and it's a hoot. There's so many people talk about this thing oh man, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's definitely worth something, probably checking out. I wonder how far it is from here.
Wait.
I'll look real quick.
Well, he's looking at that. So this guy, Dag, had a early Pinto, 70, 71, whatever it was, with a 2.3, and he had a 4-barrel intake manifold on it. I don't know how big the carburetor was, but it was a Holly carburetor, had a header, had a cam, had everything that you could put on that thing, bolt-on wise. That thing was a riot. It was, I couldn't, he took me for a ride. I could not believe how fast that thing was. And he would keep up, the muscle cars on street tires on the street, bad traction, right? So he would be able to like, because he was able to walk the thing off the start line and get it moving. And he would run with like anything, you know what I mean? Like you take your typical like, 440 GTX or 455 Buick, whatever, and you go stoplight to stoplight. And this son of a bitch would beat you across across the intersection. And if you didn't run him down by the time of second gear, the end of second gear, he had you.
Yeah, that thing's 323 miles away. It's a bit far.
Yeah. Really, we were running a 2300 Holly. Your description is exact. We used to take muscle cars all the time. I know. I lost to them myself. And believe me, I had a 446 type Charger, a 69 446 type Charger, 4-speed car. And it wasn't obviously it was an original 6-pack. I put that on there. But I was 16. It was my first engine I ever built. And yeah, no, he walked me. I was like, how did this happen? And that's what it was, man. It's just I had to all kinds of gymnastics to get the car to run. You know what I mean? Like get it off the start line. And he would just rev it, slip the clutch, let it fly, and that thing was a jet. Matt Horvath, there's a guy here who has a Pinto with a 427 small block and a Pro Charger. I think he's officially clinically insane.
I don't think so. It'd be just like a Vega.
Yeah. Well, it's a little shorter wheelbase, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a little shorter. Well, I guess the big ones is like, what was the shortest wheelbase ones at that time? The Colt, the Pinto. What was there was another one. What was the other Mitsubishi car that came out at that same time?
I don't know. It wasn't a Mitsubishi. The Plymouth Cricket. It was a British car.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. But the Pintos were great. I loved Pintos. My first like mechanical
Plymouth Arrow. That's it.
That was like 77, I think.
Oh.
It came out. Prettiest funny car body of all time. I think the Plymouth Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
My first mechanical job, right? Very first thing I ever did was I put a starter in my cousin's Pinto. I was like 11 years old or 12 years old, right? And he was stuck or she would, I forgot which cousin it was. It was a brother and sister. I don't remember whose car it was. But it was a Pinto and it was stuck in Great Kills Town with it. The starter had gone. And I talked them into going to the parts store and getting it started. I could change it. And they did.
All right.
And that was my first mechanical task. RC Top Fuel, my V8 S10 loses fuel pressure hard starting after 2 days. What can I do to stop this? Then probably the check valve in the one of two things. Either one of the injectors is bleeding down and you're losing pressure in the system, or the check valve back in the tank is bad and you're losing pressure through there. It's one of those two things. What you could do is just you could unbolt the fuel rail, keep the injectors in the fuel rail, right? And then just cycle the key on and off. When you turn the key off, they should all be dry. If you see one dripping, that's...
Or your fuel pressure regulator is bad, allowing it to return fuel back to the tank.
Does the regulator keep it from it?
It keeps fuel on the rail the whole time as it sits there. When you turn the key and it primes?
Right.
It's just for essentially if there was any bleed down, it was still an easy start. But if you have a bad regulator, because I've had a bad regulator, it'll just drain it back to the tank slowly.
Let's see. The Kickendall. I can make them fit, Tony. We can make what fit? LA head on a poly block on a Magnum crank. MIG weld time. Yeah. Just weld everything together, man. Enough of these bolts. I'm tired of this whole bolt thing. You know what I'm saying? We need to just weld everything together.
Oh, RC Top Fueler says thanks, cool thanks. It's carbed.
Oh, it's carbed? Then that's just normal, man. What happens is the gasoline evaporates. So see, okay, the way gasoline is formulated today, right? In the old days, they used to formulate gasoline so that it resisted evaporation. And I don't know what chemical they added to it. I have no idea what it was, but they added something to keep it from evaporating. When they went to all of the closed systems, like on the fuel injecting cars, they didn't need that anymore. So that additive is no longer in the pump gasoline that we buy. So if you've got a carbureted car, if you let it sit for a day or two, all of the gasoline is evaporating out of the carburetor through the vent as it sits there. So now when you go to start it after 2 days or 3 days, whatever it is, you have to crank it long enough for the pump to get the fuel back up to the bowl and restart it that way.
I'm not a big believer in that. And I'll tell you why. Okay, depending on which carburetor you're using, right? If it's a Q-Jet, it could have leaky well plugs and it'll drain the bowl, right? But the needle and seat stops the fuel from draining back, so the fuel should remain in the float bowl. And if it's a Holly,
no, you're missing the point. It's not draining back. It actually evaporates
out of the float bowl.
Out of the float bowl. If you take a carburetor, okay, just a bare carburetor, fill the float bowl. Take the top off, fill the float bowl. Go away for 2-3 hours. Come back and you'll see it's down a little bit. The next day, you'll have half the fuel in it. The next day, it's bone dry.
Really?
Absolutely.
Huh. Well, I have not noticed that. Well, there was.
But you don't daily drive carbureted cars, and that's why.
Yeah, I do. I drive my Suburban every day.
Do you?
Yeah. That's all I drive.
Okay, that's true.
When we go on these long events, I take the Expedition, but that was only because the Suburban was down that I even buy the damn thing. So Pentastar is saying that he's heading to Florida on Friday. Is there some place he can stop and get some AHRA and UTG shirts?
Not conveniently. Donna Wendy English, Uncle Tony, I was watching some of your first videos and I was laughing. This is when those were rough, right? It took me a long time to actually get comfortable doing this stuff, and I'm still not comfortable.
I remember watching your very first one where you were throwing pieces out of that carburetor. Yeah. I remember watching that in like 2016, maybe 17.
18. No, 17.
Okay, because I was at work in San Diego and Southwest Regional Maintenance Center. And me and my buddy watched it. I said, "You gotta watch this thing," He was laughing so hard.
That went viral on Facebook. We didn't make any money off of that. It was the first video we ever did. It's on this channel. If you search, the name of the video is "Everything You Need to Know About an Edelbrock Carburetor in Under a Minute." Okay, that was the video. It was like the first video that first real video that we did, and it's a minute-long video, and it's still on there. And that went viral on Facebook. And it had like 800,000 views on Facebook, and it didn't get nearly that kind of action on YouTube. We put on answer, but it's still up there. If you go, it's like the first or second video on that.
Yeah, somebody needs to viralize that video.
No,
viral.
No, we've changed so much since then. Matt Horvath, do you still have the camshafts you threw out of the tree? My stunt cam, yeah, I still have that.
Peter Kovacs is saying do a video on that. Fuel evaporating from the carb float bowl.
I did. Actually, there is. I don't remember the name of the video, but I did that video probably 2 years ago. Maybe it's time to redo it. Let's see.
Evan C. saying, do you remember the Max Wedge mystery guy? You visited him 18 months ago. In the video, you said you visit in 12 to 18 months. Any plans on going back?
I got so many people so many things I need to follow up and revisit. I could, but you know what? It's going to be the same. I'm telling you, the car's going to be sitting in the same spot with another tree growing through the front bumper. Wheelie King, both my carved Mopars, the bowls go dry in less than 48 hours. I'm telling you, it's 2 days, 48 hours, and then it's done. One is in a 758B, the other is a big bore BBD. Yes, the big one. Okay, yeah, I know. I was wrong about that. But yeah, no, I know. 48 hours, you've got an empty float bowl. I know all about it. And there's the Edelbrock Bach, which is something that's new. Okay. Okay. So if you're doing an AFB or an Edelbrock style carburetor, you'll find that the very first time you flat punch it, it'll bog. like crazy. It'll like backfire, it'll bog, it'll all kinds of shit. You can have the motor completely warmed up, right? You're driving it, let's say for 15, 20 minutes, right? The first time you punch it, it goes like that, right? Because the way the gas is formulated today, it evaporates out of the secondary passages. So you actually have to apply, vacuum to that circuitry again to pull the gas up, and it takes a second to do that. When those carburetors were designed, the fuel didn't evaporate, so it would be normal for the fuel to sit there, for a week, 2 weeks, whatever it was, and you wouldn't get that bog. But the Edelbrock carburetor, which is taken from the AFB, they didn't change the secondary design at all, and you get that the very first time you hit it. Like if you've got an AFB or an Edelbrock style carburetor, and let's say you're going to race somebody, right? Make sure you get into the secondaries before, if you're doing your burnout, right? Make sure you tip into the secondaries and get that circuitry primed before you actually go to the starting line.
Hemi Kuda says my Quadrajet does that same thing, but it still smokes the tires at 40 miles an hour. That's weird. I've never even thought of it evaporating out of there, because they're right. That it does have a vent on there.
Yep.
So it evaporates right out of the float bowl.
Yep.
And and it kind of I've sat here thinking about it, because I've always wondered, man, that every time I walk out here by this truck, it smells like gas. But I'm looking for a leak, and I don't see any leaks anywhere, right?
It's evaporating out of there. Peter Kovacs, that's why new gas sucks, 10% ethanol, 100% misery. No, you're absolutely wrong. I run all my cars on regular gas. Once you understand the 10% ethanol, once you understand the idiosyncrasies and the characteristics, if you're dealing with a performance engine, you jet up slightly, right? Like the difference between ethanol and non-ethanol gas, or just leave it alone and it's fine. You expect that if the car sits for a couple of hours, you're going to have heat soak. So just when you go to crank the motor, hold the throttle open. And if the car sits for 2 days, the bowl's going to be empty. So just expect to crank it and pump the gas a few times. It's not a big deal. I do it literally every single day of my life. There's nothing wrong with that.
Zero saying that ethanol blend gas is awful. Our gas here in Cali smells different now.
Well, I know. Okay, California does all kinds of different crazy blends depending on what week it is.
Did you see it was like $7 a gallon for gas out there right now?
Is it? I have no idea.
Like, holy cow.
Peter goes, yeah, but why do we have to live with that? It's not that big of a deal. Bro, right now, okay, there's a village someplace that's being consumed by a freaking volcano, okay? Right now, somebody is pulling their kid away from piranhas in a lake, okay? You know what I'm saying? These are people that have problems, right? Having to pump the fucking gas a time or two is not a problem. It's not a big deal. Man, so I was able to start my dad's 87 Dakota without hitting the gas after setting for 2 full days. That's because it's a throttle body.
It should be fuel
injected. First world issue. Yeah, exactly, right? There's a whole village in Ethiopia right now that is chasing a chicken because they need to eat, okay? And people are complaining because it's 10% ethanol and it evaporates.
And people are digging diamonds out with bone fingers because they've worn through the skin.
Really, in the video you did explaining the filter with the return port solved a lot of headaches. Yeah, right. I stumbled across that and it works perfectly. Joe K, didn't you address that in the $8 cure for vape lock? Yes, that's what we were talking about. Matt S, nope, 87 was the first and only year with a carburetor, 2280 Holly 2-barrel. Really? Then it must have something to close off the vent. It must have some sort of evaporative emissions thing that closes off the vent and doesn't allow it to evaporate. What do you think?
I'm actually kind of surprised that 87 something came with a carburetor.
So am I. But I mean, he might be right. But then again, if it didn't evaporate, there's a reason it didn't evaporate, and it has to be probably to do with the evap system on that particular truck.
Bernard is saying zero is a gas huffer now because he was saying gas smells different.
The Kickendall buys marine fuel at the local gas station. 93 octane, no ethanol. My 30-year-old Jeep runs smoother than heck on it. Runs rough with the ethanol stuff. Yeah.
Peter Kovac says, at what point does some non-car person dictating their viewpoint to you become a problem?
At what point does a non-car person dictating
this used to be like the norm. It used to be like there was three kinds of guys in the world: sports guys, car guys, and guys like the other guys, right?
Okay.
And you would talk to, anybody that was a sports guy or a guy like the other guys, and they'd try to pal up with you and do car stuff, right? I had a 426 Hemi in my Chrysler Newport. Okay, yeah, you did, buddy. And sure enough, you would run into this stuff all the time, and you just start filing it under bullshit, and just like let the dude run his mouth, and then you turn and finish what you were doing before.
I generally just don't talk to anybody.
Well, you're very antisocial.
I'm extremely antisocial. I get on here, this is my socialness for the week. I get on here and I do these lives, and then the rest of the time I just don't talk to anybody. That's actually pretty true.
What's that?
That I really don't talk to anybody.
Oh.
Well, there are days like if Kathy isn't around, right? If she's busy doing something or I don't see her, there are literally entire days where a sound doesn't come from my.
Yeah, you go home and you like talk to Kathy and like, oh, that hurts my throat. She has, well, what's wrong? I haven't spoke to anyone in over 48 hours. Yeah, well, I'm not that lucky. I'm a chatterbox anyway.
Zero got one. Yeah. Oof.
What's that? Blasted some guy?
Yeah. What are you saying?
Oh, I'm a chatterbox. I'm like
you
calling people all the time. I can talk all day long.
I don't play well with others. I generally don't. I'll tell you what, I'm good. I like to have non-car conversations. So like if I run into somebody and it's talking about like let's just say economics or physics or history or psychology. I'm big into psychology, occult sort of things. I can enjoy those conversations, But when it comes to cars, I don't want to talk about cars. I just do not want to talk about cars ever.
I'm like the
with
opposite.
Anybody ever. Even
if
you. I don't want to talk about cars.
If I'm out and about somewhere and someone's talking to me about anything but cars, I know nothing about football. Zero.
Well,
right? Zero. Like you can ask me a football question, and the closest I can come to it is putting it in the spring of a car. Right? I don't know shit about it.
I know nothing about sports ball.
I don't do any of that stuff. And I always have felt awkward in most social situations where people talk about other shit. And I tell you what, it sucked being in the Navy because there's like very few car guys, right? Most of them are sports guys, and that's what they live for, and this and that. But I can't relate to them. I couldn't talk to them. Never was good at it.
Let's see.
Well, Mr. Will, you're more than welcome. Come on by. We'll drink some beers and we'll talk shop. Sports ball. Yeah.
Go sports ball team. Yay.
I was always the guy that like all the sports guys in the Navy would be like, hey man, my car doesn't run right. Okay, we're going to the junkyard. I'll show you what you need to get. You can get that off of there, this over here, that and it. And they're like, how the hell you know all this? The same way you know how many fucking touchdowns Brett Favre is going to throw this month, right? Like, it's just that's my gig.
Well, Jeff, when people ask me if I'm going to watch the Super Bowl, I tell them I don't like baseball.
Where do I buy my daffodils and daisies? What's that imply?
I don't know. EZS Automotive. Hey guys, I'm putting a 671 blower on my 66 Mustang. Looking for two 600 CFM Carter carbs. Can you still buy Carters or are they all Edelbrock's? Yes, they are all Edelbrock's. Carter hasn't made a carburetor in generations now.
Carter was defunct in what, 81?
Yeah, like a long time ago. Edelbrock bought the design. An Edelbrock carburetor is a Carter carburetor. They're exactly identical. The regular Carter, the regular Edelbrock is an AFB, and they also have a series, and I can't remember the name of the series, that's the AVS design, the AVS style. But yes, that's what you would want to.
It's called the AVS.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go, the Edelbrock AVS.
Yeah, and then I want to say the last time I ever saw Carter carburetor advertised was in like PAW, if that gives anybody any idea, right? So when did PAW disappear? A week after the internet came out? They just couldn't. I love PAW. That was the shit right there.
Stagger.
They just couldn't conform to the internet.
Stagger Proof says he saw the guy with the 600 horsepower slant on YouTube today. He looks legit. I will eat that car. Show me. I'm serious. You think I'm joking, right? Show me that thing actually makes 600 horsepower on any dyno. I mean, even a bad dyno, okay, with a drunk dyno operator, right? Show me a 600 horsepower print from that Slant 6. I will eat that car. I will literally physically eat that car.
Okay. Hollywood is asking, hey, Dallas, there's a Dallas and Uncle Tony there. And
Hey,
that's because
you
they give
slam. You went first.
You guys didn't play any sports ball growing up? No.
No.
I dabbled in basketball. I realized I sucked at it, and that was it.
No, I used to literally like gym class. They have like gym class. That was the worst experience of my life. Like literally, I came up with every excuse you could imagine to not have to deal with. So what I would do is I would like fake an injury, or I would start a fight, or I would do something that would get me, put off on the sidelines. And I always had a car magazine, like a copy of Superstock or whatever, stashed somewhere, and I would sit there and read my magazine. And gym was the worst nightmare I could ever deal with.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at sports, and so I just did my own thing.
Terrence Seymour, he detested sports and was the same at school.
Detested school as well.
Oh, I detested school. I mean, please.
I enjoyed school. I had a good time at school. But I definitely didn't want to stay for another 4 years, and there's no way I could financially have ever done that.
Mr. Will Tony, you ever went to a Yankee or a Met game? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? That's like saying, did you ever stick an umbrella in your ass? Because there's more. There would be it would make more sense to me to stick an umbrella in my ass than it would be to go to a Mets or a Yankees game.
PAW died in 1997. Okay, well, that would explain why I haven't seen him in a long time.
Okay, wait. I lie. I was on a football league team for like a year, and I got a story about that. But it wasn't because I wanted to be. I was like forced into it by my family, right? But I'll tell that story another time.
Well, that's what Brian Power. Okay, so this is why I'll read this thing here. Funny thing about sports guys versus car guys. Most car guys get to go on and do what they love. Most sports guys blow out their knees and quit after high school. This is exactly why I did the AHRA, okay? Because I saw it as like, I was trying to shoot for the amateur level sportsman racing association, right? Because there isn't one. There really isn't one. The NHRA cares zero about the sportsman. It's all about the big show, right? The big three. And if you ain't the big three, you're crap. And if you don't think that's true, apparently you've never run like super stock and waited days to make a time run in between the big show stuff, especially during a rain out. But what I was kind of focused on was like, that's a good thing about drag racing is that you can do it all the way up to you're freaking 88 years old or older, right? I mean, look at the Greek. He was there all the way to the end. And he's still around, but I think he's retired now at 90 years old, maybe.
Something like that.
If you look at the sports guy that was Mr. Football in high school, what's he doing? He's not playing football right now, guaranteed. You know, most of them, I would say probably the 1% just goes on to be the professional, and everybody else just goes to work, right? Well, why not freaking find a skill that you can enjoy? That's kind of how I was looking at it, but I was trying to tailor the whole thing. If you haven't noticed, the problem with motorsports in general these days is you're fighting everything, right? They've changed the schools. They don't teach this stuff in schools anymore, right? You don't have auto shop classes anymore. If they do have an auto shop class, it's a technical school. Most of them don't have a performance background. Some of them are starting to get that now, but you shouldn't have to go to school to learn performance stuff. We learned it all out. Like, where'd you learn yours? Magazines and blowing shit up, right? That's how I learned mine. Magazines and blowing shit up. Probably the same magazines he was writing, and then I was blowing my shit up.
Yeah, you were reading the stuff that I was writing.
Right.
The generational difference between us. Wild Rose Garage, Tony, you ever used to watch boxing? I was a huge boxing fan for a very short period of time when Mike Tyson was in his prime, right?
I think everybody was then.
Yeah, everybody was, right? He was the most amazing thing to this day. I've never seen anything as just efficient and brutal and, you know what I mean?
I was the same way. I tell you, the Michael Spinks fight. It literally was talked up for 6 months, and it must have lasted 37 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. I actually still, if you catch him, he's matured so much, and the guy has real wisdom.
Well, I liked how he was absolutely brutally honest, cutthroat, honest to people.
Well, that's the thing about Mike Tyson, and like I said, that's why I would consider myself, I'm still a fan, is because he is the most honest person you will ever come across. The guy owns every mistake he ever made. You know what I mean? He doesn't make excuses. Look, this is what I did. You know what I mean? I was on drugs. I was drunk. I was the power trip, the whole bit. You know what I'm saying?
But he was still a badass boxer. He wasn't his heyday. Oh man! And if you were like throw up Tyson versus Ali, man, I don't know. If you take them both in their prime, that'd be a good fight to watch. It really would be. But I don't know who I would pick on that one. Ali's got a good reach, but man,
no, Tyson would have destroyed Ali. Ali was an endurance player.
The long game,
yeah,
wear you down,
right? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no.
Tyson was a brawler.
Tyson would have taken him apart. It would, yeah. Then that's not taking anything away from Ali.
No, and he played the game that he played at that time. I mean, Mike Tyson was okay. The days of the brawler had long went away when Mike Tyson showed up, right? The first, what was it? The first generation fighters. That's when the brawlers were still around. Most of them went away, and you had the guys that played the long game. Like they figured out you wear them down, just like Ali did, right? You wear them down, then you can beat the shit out of them easy.
Well, my grandfather on my mother's side, Johnny Yotis, he fought Jake LaMotta. He fought Jake LaMotta, and he managed Rocky Graziano for a while back in the 1950s. But that was like removed from my, you know what I mean? Like that was already way in his past by the time I came along.
Death match: Sean Connery versus Roger Moore.
Big Red, hey Tony, do you think Plans U will make 300 horsepower? Not likely. I mean, I would say probably 250 is about 250.
Well, that's good. That's not bad.
About,
well, think about it. Any person can almost build 1 horsepower per cubic inch in a garage. It takes somebody that has finesse to build 1 1/4 to 1.5 horsepower, and then you take a professional engine builder that does this for a living, and they're getting 2 1/4. Right?
Yeah, the baddest naturally aspirated slants on earth don't make 300 horsepower. Naturally aspirated. Because there are guys out there with turbocharged cars that make a lot more than that, but naturally aspirated, now, it really is a weed whacker. I mean, it's a weed whacker.
Okay, Project Thunderbird says, "Hey Tony, my dad has a '66 Olds F85 and has the original two-speed auto trans. Is it worth rebuilding it? We're thinking of upgrading to a three-speed auto, but our budget is quite tight. Thanks."
I would throw a 200 or 4 in there.
That is exactly what I was just going to say. So that transmission you got, most people refer to it as a power glide, but it's not. It's actually a super turbine 300, and it's what the Turbo 350 is based off of. It has a switch pitch torque converter in it, just like the switch pitch torque converter in the Turbo 400s that were referred to as a Super Turbine 400. The neatest thing about the ST300 is that it dimensionally is exactly the same as the Turbo 350, but it's also dimensionally exactly the same as the 204R that came out, oh, what,
1982?
Yeah. So that was the go-to GM Olds or Buick Olds Pontiac GM transmission because it actually has a bell housing that fits any GM product. It bolts up to any flex plate that GM's produced, and it fits behind just about anything. The only downside is you will have to buy a cross member. The drive shaft will remain the same. But if you're going to spend money on something, hit the junkyard, find a 204R out of like a 87 Caprice.
Cutlass, any of those cars.
Yeah, it'd have to be like 85 and later Cutlass came with them.
833 in Junkyard Jet and cast crank discuss. Well, the cast crank, the crank is not drilled for a pilot bushing. So on that application to run the 833 on that cast Magnum crank, you got to cut about 1.5 to 2 inches off of the input shaft of the transmission, and then use the Magnum style pilot bushing, which is like a roller pilot bushing that fits into the register on the back of the crank. So that's the only modification necessary to make that happen.
I just noticed something here. So, RC Top Fueler, what is a Pontiac Slim Jim Trans? I'm not so entirely sure about the Pontiac. I know the transmission that came in my '63 Buick Special is what they call the Slim Jim. It's it's actually called a dual path transmission. It's virtually like a two-speed.
But relies heavily on the torque converter.
Right, and it's got an air-cooled torque converter. It's actually if you look some of the older tech videos, there's some guys screaming Dynaflow when they saw it, and it's not a Dynaflow. It's actually a dual path transmission.
I thought it was a Dynaflow.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Slim Jim. It's like virtually a wet noodle with a torque converter on it. What are we talking about? Hydromatic 4-speed. Is that the 204R?
Let's see. Chris Vandekar, great question. What was Chris Vandekar's question? I know. So there it is. Chris Vandekar, 71-440 4-barrel, 8.5 to 1 compression. How much, if any, can one raise a compression ratio with just a head gasket?
I bet you can get not a full point, but you can have a point out of that.
Oh God, no. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. You cannot, starting with your starting point, assuming the engine has the original head gaskets in it.
Oh, is that the steel shim?
Steel shim.
You can't get anything.
Yeah, you can't get anything thinner than
it's going to get worse.
There, that's it. You've already got it. You've already got it. Kyle Teal, this is a good one. What engine combination would you throw in a Model A for street use?
Man, I got that 215. I do that 215 and T5. I've been wanting to do that for a while. And that'd be perfect in like a lightweight car, like a Model A.
Yeah. I mean, I would want something probably just a little more oomph. I would.
273. Your 273 would be cool in that.
See, it's a Model A. I'd have to put a Ford in it.
Oh,
So-
289.
Yeah, I think a 302 or 351. A 302, a nice 302.
I like 302. That's one of my favorites. But Wild Rose Garage, Dallas. I have a 61 364 Buick with a Dynaflow in the garage. What exactly is a Dynaflow? Dynaflow was a Buick's first attempt at an automatic transmission. They're not that bad. They're just Tony had talked
Have you
about.
ever driven a Dynaflow?
Well, I imagine it's pretty slow.
It's
Right.
it's miserable.
It's one gear, right? It's like virtually one gear. Some of them had switch pitch torque converters, and that's what what feels like two gears. It's just the stall changes in the torque converter.
If regular go watch regular car go search YouTube regular car reviews, okay? And they did a road test on a 63 Buick, might have been
The
60,
Dynaflow.
62, 63 Buick. I don't remember what it was. Just put in Buick, right? So go to regular car reviews, search Buick, right? And look at the road test they did on the Buick because it had a Dynaflow. And the way he describes it is exactly how it feels. It's just a miserable, yeah, no, there's nothing happy about a Dynaflow.
All right, Mr. Will throws this question at me: how can I raise the compression on my 72 LeSabre from 8.5 to 9.5? Mr. Will, you are going to be hard pressed to get 9.5, but I'll tell you how you can probably get like 9.2. 72, they would have used it wouldn't have been the steel shim head gaskets, I don't think, in 72. I believe 72 would have been the first one that were like 43,000 typical head gaskets. If you can find some steel shim head gaskets, which they will be hard to find, you'd have to get them off of eBay, and they got to be an NOS set most likely, and you're going to pay big time dollars for them. And then you can throw a set of 70 and before cylinder heads on it because they're 67cc chamber instead of 72 off like your 72 LeSabre. Your 72 might actually be 73cc, and it'll raise the compression up on it. The downside is going to be that I found on big block Buicks is that anything over 9-to-1, you get a hard time finding pump gas that'll support it.
Robert Hunnels. I own a 1968 Jeep Wagoneer with a Buick engine. How rare is it? First off, it's not rare.
No, that's what standard engine.
That's what's standard there. But the second thing is that if you want to see me geek out over a vehicle, okay, put me in the presence of like a mid-60s Wagoneer, an early to mid-60s Wagoneer. And I mean, I just love those things.
I love the way they look. I love the wheels.
I love everything about them.
Oh, God,
everything about them.
They're so good looking, but they rusted so bad. It's hard to find one that's in good shape. Actually, I thought J2000s were going to be the easier thing to find, but they're just as rusty. I thought it's a different bed, so it can't be that bad. Oh man, I'm pretty certain it came with like a option block in 68, 69, like that said rusted cab corners. Yes.
Hey man, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, that went by fast.
That did go by fast.
Doug Narden's asking about the old Schwinn banana seat bikes. And the
Yeah,
chrome
we all had those. My generation did. That was the thing. Banana seats.
Isn't that the pea pickers, stuff like that?
Yeah, they had all different names for them.
They had cool names for them.
The orange crate, the apple cart. Oh God. But yeah, they were cool. So, when are we going to do the next installment for the AHRA Drag Racing History Channel?
I don't know. You want to do one tomorrow? Hey, you know what? I got an idea.
Tomorrow.
We can do it from your house. You want to do that? And that way I can do it from my house?
Like a StreamYard thing?
Yeah, just like I did before with the Steve
That'd
Magnante.
be fine.
And then if you want, I'll call Jim Hall.
Well, I can do it from here.
Oh,
Just
okay.
so we're represented.
Yeah,
Gotta
that's
be
fine.
represented.
That's fine. That's fine.
Right.
We can do that, except for it's just going to have to be recorded like that over Zoom.
That's fine.
And then we can put it up.
So yeah, we're gonna do that, and you're gonna start doing lives on your channel.
I am. I got to figure out how I'm going to do them. But it is going to cover like things that are actually happening with the AHRA. It won't be drag racing history live, It will be, well, and we might be able to do some drag racing history live too. That'd be simple. It'd be a Q&A just like this, right? But I did want to discuss things that I was going to be doing with the AHRA. Like this year, I think Econo Comp's already burnt me so many times, it may go away.
Thank you, Go Go Garage.
Yeah, coffee or whatever. Another mic.
All right, so he's going to start doing lives on his channel. He's officially monetized. So every time you guys click on one of his videos, you support the AHRA, and of course buy his merch. You got to buy all his merch.
I just put some new merch up today.
Oh my God!
This
really?
red shirt you can get for a normal sized person, not just a child now. Yep. And if you buy this shirt today, Tony will come to your house and he will clean the inside of your oven with oven cleaner.
I don't do stuff like that.
But you always offer it for me.
I'm the big shot. I'm the guy with all of the subs. You have to go there. All right. So yeah, maybe I will come to your house and clean your oven. What else? So yeah, on our Sunday night show, regular Sunday night show. Okay, so tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, we're doing live head porting with the Junkyard Jet guys. So
are you really?
Yes. So I'm gonna do one cylinder to show them the way, and then they're gonna do it their own thing. So,
when they get to cylinder number 4, it's gonna be like twice as hard.
Oh please, I know. But there's only one way for them to learn, right?
Right.
So I'll give them the guide, you know what I mean? And it'll be very minor, just clean up port. I'm not gonna do anything exotic, right? But we're just gonna do a clean up port on it, and then let them do their thing. So that'll be tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Saturday night, I got Matt Happel from Sloppy Mechanics. We were supposed to have him on a couple of weeks ago, but we'll have him this week. And then Steve Mignanti, I got to set up a schedule with Steve. We've just been missing each other, so we'll have Steve on there again on here soon. So I think that's it. Our mods, Ari, John, Fubar Zero. Thank you guys so much.
They kill it every week, don't they?
They do kill it every week.
And we should probably give them do they have their own channel? They can get some, what is it, the quick cash or whatever it comes on there?
I think we need to do even better than that. I think we need to send them Filipino brides.
Filipino brides?
Yes.
And donuts.
Do you guys want that? We'll do that. We would do that for you. We would buy some Filipino women and send them to your house. That would be, Go
Go Garage AHRA YouTube channel is AHRA Drag Racing History Channel. It's American Hot Rod Association Drag Racing History Channel. It's literally like the longest name on YouTube. I had to abbreviate association so I could actually have enough letters that I could put the whole thing on there.
And Jake Burns' toilet blew up. So everybody who contributed with Super Chat, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Super Chat.
Paying those bills, man. Thank you so much. And everybody who just contributed with, I don't just conversation, man. Just your presence. These Wednesday night shows are great. The Sunday night shows are great. I love working with you guys. So yeah, thank you all so much. And we're gonna check out of here now. And I'm gonna hit that button.
See you next week.
It's all over.
That's it.
We'll be
unlive.
Foot over. Thank you guys. Good night. Done.